Black Radio pregame show as we get you set for Saturday's kickoff. Now here's your host, Kyle Charters.
The Boilermakers try to get a thus far elusive Ross-Ade Stadium victory this season, welcoming in Illinois for homecoming Saturday afternoon. We'll preview on the Golden Black Radio pregame podcast. Kyle Charters here, Tom Dienhart, Brian Newbert, and Alan Karpick as well. Boilermakers against the Fighting Illini Saturday afternoon in Ross-Ade Stadium. Tom, there are storylines for Purdue and Illinois. Let's start off with the game itself. Purdue needs to win a football game. It needs to win a football game at home, where it has not yet done so in the Ryan Walters era. But, man, not only that, it's an important game. Purdue just absolutely must get 2 victories here by the end of September if it realistically wants a chance to get to 6 or more victories on this season.
Yeah, that's a fair assessment. I mean, I thought Purdue needed to be at least 3-2 to have a really good shot at it. And they're behind schedule, obviously. But yeah, you certainly don't want to go 1-4. So yeah, 2-3 has got to be your goal if you're Purdue. And we've talked about the to-do list for Purdue after September, Kyle. There's only 3 home games left. Purdue's got to go to places like Iowa. They have to go to Michigan. Ohio State comes to West Lafayette. You have to go to Nebraska. So, you look at October, November, and if Purdue's 2-3, you'd be hard pressed to find 4 games you could circle as likely wins. So, but again, if they lose Saturday, that hill becomes even steeper, and the odds become longer. So we all know the urgency that surrounds Purdue here on Saturday.
Purdue coming off a loss last Friday at home to Wisconsin. Tom, if you're Purdue's head coach, what is the number one thing you are trying to fix before the game on Saturday?
I think one is just eliminate the turnovers. I think that's where you got to start, right?
Yeah.
I think they had 2 more last week. I think they had 4 against Syracuse, and after having none the first 2 games. So that's been the bugaboo that's really cropped up. But, most football coaches will tell you there's 2 things you got to do. You can't turn the ball over, and you have to have explosive plays. So they need more explosive plays, Kyle. They lead the Big Ten in, I think, plays of 10 yards. But when you start looking at most 20-yard plays, 30-yard plays, 40-yard plays, I looked this up this week, and Purdue's at or near the bottom in the Big Ten. And just more explosiveness on offense. Penalties have been an issue of late as well, Kyle. And defensively, where we know the issues they've had dealing with quarterbacks that can run the football. And here comes Luke Altmaier, and he can run the football. So we'll be seeing if this defense has gotten any better trying to contain that quarterback run, especially off the RPOs.
The Boilermakers still in search of a bit of an offensive identity. It seems like that has been a hot topic really from week 1. Perhaps they took to the back burner after the Boilermakers' victory against Virginia Tech a couple of weeks ago. But it still seems like Graham Harrell and company is sort of searching for what Purdue is. One thing that I think that Purdue should be, Tom, is trying to set Deion Burks up as often as possible. I mean, if Purdue has one guy out there, at least in the receiving core, who looks different than the rest of the guys, it's certainly Burks, it seems. Purdue's got to do something to get him the ball. A little bit similar fashion to what Jeff Brom did with Rondell Moore back in the day, right? I mean, set him up and then play off him and try to see if that jumpstarts the offense a little bit.
Yeah, use him as a decoy if you have to. We know defenses are going to try to take him away. Everybody knows that. So you have to play off that if need be. And, I just watched Rondell Moore last weekend. He took a handoff in the backfield and ran, 50, 60 yards for a touchdown. So, yeah, different ways to be creative, getting number 4 Burks involved. And I think this offense has a few other guys that are capable of being semi-difference makers. I still like the 2 running backs, Tyrone Tracy and Devin Mockabee. I like the 2 tight ends, Garrett Miller and Max Clare. Those 4 guys, I think, can really help you out. We've seen Yassine step up at receiver. Kyle, he actually leads the team in catches, but he's more of a possession guy. But Max Clare, Garrett Miller, use those tight ends more. And I'll be interested to see, Kyle, how the running backs are used. We know Maccabee's become the second team guy. Tracy's sort of emerged. I wouldn't mind, Kyle, if they could find a way to get both of those guys on the field at the same time.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind that. one bit. For Purdue defensively, stop the quarterback from running.
Yeah.
Stop the opponent from running in general. It feels like, we talked about this a little bit earlier in the week, it feels like Purdue's not really setting the edge, right? And keeping runners inside or redirecting them inside. Is that part of Purdue's defensive problem here in the first third of the season?
It seems like it has. I mean, that defensive end or that outside linebacker, I should say, crashing down and leaving the outside exposed. You got to contain and push everything back to the middle. I think they use spies. They've tried to employ spies on these quarterbacks too. Maybe we'll see some of that Saturday as well. So, yeah, I asked Kevin Kane about it, and obviously that they're working on. He discussed some of those things, and we'll see if they can continue to adapt to get better at that, because Illinois is going to test them. And this is an Illinois offense that has had its struggles. Altmaier struggles to pass the football, Kyle. I think he's got 7 interceptions. Isaiah Williams is a very good receiver. They haven't ran the ball very well, and that's really a staple of Brett Bielema's teams typically over the years, is that ability to run the football. Haven't been quite that good. They really struggle on their offensive line, just like Purdue. So what I'm trying to say, Kyle, is these are two teams that have their flaws that are probably pretty evenly matched. That's why the line is so close, and it's probably going to be a game that comes down to who makes the plays in the fourth quarter.
So there's all the other stuff about this game. Brian Walters coached at Illinois last year, was the defensive coordinator, took some other coaches from there with him. Of course, the Illini had a big changeover in personnel, too, in terms of players from that great Illinois defense last year. They had a big changeover on offense, too. New quarterback, new running back. I'd imagine other new players out there on that side of the ball as well. What do you make about some of the talk back and forth here a little bit about this game? Do you think it matters headed into Saturday? Do you think it matters at all once the ball is kicked off on Saturday, or do you just go out there and play football? Yeah,
I never do. It's fun. It's fun to lead up for people to write stories about and talk about, some of this, if there's any back and forth or playful banter, if you will, jabbing. But again, as I always think, not an original thought, but once the game gets started, all that stuff goes in the back seat. And yeah, the Illinois connections are deep on this Purdue staff. We know about Walters. He brought over several assistant coaches: Corey Patterson, Joe Deneen, Kevin Kane, Grant O'Brien. The ops guy, Pete Rowley, came from Illinois. There's a senior defensive analyst, Preston Gordon. So I think it's 6 guys, 6 former Illinois staffers are in West Lafayette. So it'd be fun watching Brett Bielema and Ryan Walters interact before the game. And, just again, a fun dynamic. And this has been a crazy series where Purdue's really dominated of late, Kyle. They've won the last 3. They won 6 of 7. They've won 14 of 18. You probably remember the last Illinois win over here was in the quagmire in 2019. So just a fun series for two schools that are so similar and so close together.
Yeah, it has been a good one. It's one on 2, right? That I don't have the numbers right in front of me. That the road team here over the last 15 years has often won 2, right? Believe that's the case.
Still one over there, for crying out loud. Darrell Hayes was 2-2 against Illinois. That's all you need to know.
I know.
I think both wins were over there.
It's crazy.
So again, yeah, it's again two programs, even similar historical arcs. To be honest with you, similar historical paths, sort of been up and down. Can never really get their football program with sustained success. Always been more basketball schools. So yeah, but there's a lot of football tradition of both of these programs, and boy, for 2023, 2 schools coming off good years last year, sort of still trying to find their way as September melts into October.
Purdue's relatively healthy, right?
Yeah. I tell you what, Kyle, they really are. I think Ben Freehill's going to be out again. He may be back for the Iowa game next week, so look for Croc over to kick off, and May just to handle placements. Gus Hartwig's fine. I think we may see more of the Missouri transfer, Luke Griffin, at right guard. With Jalen Grant, sort of had some struggles there, number 75. Garrett Miller's fine. The backfield, the quarterback, the receivers. Yeah, across the board, they are really in pretty good shape. DeMarge Lewis is out. He had a procedure to take care of some bone spurs, but he really hasn't been playing much this year. So, yeah, long story short, they should be in pretty good health when this thing's kicked off on Saturday at 3:30 Eastern time.
Let's take a break. Weather forecast for Saturday. That's coming up here in just a moment. Also, we'll talk to Brian Newberg to get his perspective on the Boilermakers. Alan Carpet coming up as well for a Big Ten look and historical glance at the Cannon. Then we'll bring Tom back in later, talk some matchups, and get our predictions as well. All that ahead. This is the Golden Black Radio pregame podcast.
Hello from News 18. I'm Storm Team 18 meteorologist David Seipel. The Boilermakers are taking on Illinois with a kickoff time around 3:30 in the afternoon. If you plan on tailgating in the morning and early afternoon hours, expect some early patchy fog in the morning, but the sun will come out quickly after sunrise. Lows will be in the mid-50s. By noon, temperatures will be around 72 with mostly sunny skies. At kickoff, temperatures will be around 80 with plenty of sun, blue skies, and east winds about 6 miles per hour. And the drive home looks good too, with temperatures dropping into the mid-70s with clear skies. Overall, the weather is looking fantastic and warm for some Purdue football. From News 18, I'm Storm Team 18 meteorologist David Seipel. Boiler up, hammer down.
Designing and building since 1968, T&W has changed the way people think about construction. T&W's three-stage approach to designing and building is unmatched throughout the construction industry. Learn more about T&W's people, passion, and projects at twdesignbuild.com.
Experience unparalleled comfort, service, and cuisine at the Whitaker Inn. This Midwestern oasis is perfect for a relaxing staycation or weekend getaway.
Escape from the ordinary at the Whitaker Inn.
It's time to break it down as we go in-depth about Purdue's opponent.
Hey, pleased to be joined by Lauren Tate, the iconic Lauren Tate, who's covered Illinois for decades. Lauren, appreciate your time. So real quick, let's get started. Kind of give fans an idea what to expect from this Illinois offense on Saturday.
Well, I think that they're still trying to establish a running game for Brett Bielema, and I think that that's been kind of iffy. They had a real problem early in the game Saturday against Florida Atlantic. They didn't get much of a running game going. They had 3 long passes in that game by Altmaier, so they're still. But what's interesting is in trying to clinch the game late, they did run the ball the last 4 minutes, ran off the clock to hang on to a 6-point victory. They couldn't get the ball up at that point because they could lose the game if Atlantic hit some long ones. So I thought the running game came on somewhat toward the end with Josh McCray in the ball game. Love has so far he's averaging 5.6 yards per carry, which is pretty good. On 44 carries in the 4 games, but the real answer to your question is that they're still searching for the kind of running game that they need, and it hasn't shown up so far this year with any consistency.
All right, defensively, Lauren, kind of give us an idea of what to expect from that Illini defense.
Well, defensively, they're trying to get the secondary together. 2 weeks ago, they lost 2 safeties, including Bailey, who was the starter, and Hill, who was also his backup. So they were shorthanded at safety, but then this game, Saturday against Atlantic, they had 2 cornerbacks go down, including Taz Nicholson, but they feel like at this point that they'll both be back. But the secondary isn't anywhere near what it was last year when they had all those interceptions, 24, I believe it was, interceptions in the season, and it was a strength of the team last year. This team has given up about 27 points a game so far. Played Penn State pretty well, but the turnovers in that game made it very difficult to judge the defense. The first 10 possessions that Penn State had, the first 10, they scored 1 touchdown. Now, they also got a couple field goals because they took over the ball in Illinois territory. But generally speaking, the defense is not to be compared with last year when they led the nation in scoring defense, just over 12 points a game. This one is more than double that so far, and they're still searching for some answers at linebacker and in the secondary.
Okay, Lauren, how do you see this game unfolding? Brett Bielema versus Ryan Walters, a lot of good storylines. So many former Fighting Illini staffers are at Purdue. How do you see this game going when it kicks off at 3:30 Eastern time on Saturday for Purdue's homecoming?
Well, I think that the home field and the homecoming is what makes Purdue a very slight favorite in this game. But I see it as just a toss-up game, and I think Illinois is probably wishing for a really strong downpour, because the only win that Illinois had in the last 7 tries was in the mud over there. The day you had that bad rain, that was several years back. That's Illinois' only win in the last 7 tries. But I think Illinois is a little better than Purdue. That's my opinion. But I don't think it's enough. I mean, in a game like this, it could go either way. And I do think that the home field is an advantage in this situation, particularly there being homecoming and all. But you got a lot of Illinois coaches over there who know the Illini system, and a lot of Illini coaches know the Purdue system. So I think we probably know each other pretty well.
It'd be a lot of fun, Lauren. Two teams want to continue to get better, especially Purdue. Of course, the Boilermakers is 1-3. They've lost their last 2, Lauren, and haven't won in Ross-Ade Stadium this year. I appreciate your time very much. Look forward to seeing you Saturday.
I just say one thing. This Western Division is wide open. There's nobody much better than anybody. I mean, Purdue's got just as good a chance as Illinois or anybody else in this division, I think. So I think it could go, somebody could get a little streak going. It would, after seeing what Iowa did at Penn State against a team that Illinois played pretty physical with, I think this thing's a toss-up.
It ought to be good, Lauren. Appreciate your time, sir.
On the far end of Main Street in downtown Lafayette, you'll find East End Grill, industrial and classic. The restaurant is built like a steakhouse, but handles like a bistro. East End Grill's menu includes creative starters, simple chopped salads, burgers, fresh fish, and steaks, and the signature shrimp and grits. The staff prepares every item from scratch and emphasizes simple meals that incorporate fresh, local, and seasonal ingredients. A warm and inviting dining room features a cozy bar that includes a great selection of craft beer, inspired cocktails, and a robust and expanding wine list. Whatever your entertainment needs are, a cocktail at the bar, dinner with family, or a special event in the private dining room, the energized and attentive staff is here for you. Eastern Grill in downtown Lafayette, welcome to our table. When it comes to land sales, it pays to have experts in your corner. AcrePro Midwest Farm Group is your local farmland specialist. With decades of experience in Indiana agriculture, no one knows the market better. Whether you're doing a 1031 exchange or simply buying and selling farmland, your local AcrePro agent will walk the land with you and ensure the deal is done right. Visit acrepro.com or call 765-775-6502 and talk to your local land expert today. Again, 765-775-6502.
At Purdue Federal Credit Union, it's about a relationship. A relationship that goes where you go, wherever you are in life. A relationship that's committed to free financial wellness resources, lower fees, and innovative digital banking solutions. Because we believe in people helping people. Let's build your financial future together. Purdue Federal Credit Union, your trusted financial partner for life. Federally insured by NCUA.
This is the Golden Black Radio pregame show, the most in-depth guide to Saturday's game you'll find, featuring the staff of Golden Black.
Let's bring in Brian Newbert to get his perspective on the Boilermakers as they get set to take on the Fighting Illini at 3:30 on Saturday. Brian, as part of the game on Saturday, Purdue will dedicate the Tiller Tunnel, looking back on the career of Joe Tiller and the way in which Purdue is honoring him. I mean, I think it's been great. We've seen it for 3 games. It's impressive. And a great tribute to a great coach, obviously. You know, you look back on that era, Brian, and it makes you appreciate what Purdue was able to do as I think we even get farther away from it. That Joe Tiller was able to come in and turn around the Purdue program as quickly as he did, get Purdue to a Rose Bowl within a handful less than that of years. Just crazy to consider that, now. And I think, as you start here on the beginning of the Ryan Walters era, you realize that what Purdue is going through right now is more similar to what is typical, right, for a new coach to have to build a program, even a program that has had some recent success. It's just crazy to look back, however many years that was, 20, 25, 26, whatever it is, years ago, and think about what Joe Tiller was able to do so quickly at Purdue.
Yeah, I have a variety of thoughts here. The first of which is that I don't know what typical is anymore in college football because, the one thing Joe Tiller and them could not do back in 1996, 97 was recruit 30 new players. I think that's part of this. I think expectations in year one for any new coaching staff are going to be an absolute crapshoot every year. I think expectations in general for most teams every year are going to be a complete crapshoot because there's going to be so many new guys. I think football is more sophisticated now than it was back then. I think coaches like Joe Tiller had something to do with that. I think offense like he ran is part of the reason linebackers are so fast now and smaller than they were back in 1995. I think defenses have changed because of that sort of offense. I'd kind of be curious to know, would Ryan Walters be the defensive coach he was at Illinois and that got him the Purdue job if it wasn't for, spread offenses becoming so chic in college football, in part not solely because of Joe Tiller by any means, but that school of thinking that kind of took over the game back then. But one other thought about that is that, part of the reason Purdue was able to have success right away was the schedule. And I think Ryan Walters is taking over a very different schedule than Joe Tiller did, but also has a chance ahead of him to do what Joe Tiller did too, in the sense that you remember the same year Purdue hired Joe Tiller, Minnesota, Indiana, and Illinois all hired new coaches too. And that kind of put them kind of together in the same boat as peers. And Purdue in 1997 kicked the crap out of all three of those teams. Really laid the wood to Cam Cameron, Glenn Mason, and Ron Turner. And that kind of set Purdue apart a little bit at a time when those were some of the schools that you had to recruit against a lot to get things kind of up and running again. So that's where I guess I'd say some significance lies here in terms of this Illinois game. This is kind of one of those also ran Big Ten programs that you got to beat before you build up to, kind of beating Wisconsin for the first time since the second Bush administration.
Yeah, for sure. It makes it a big game on Saturday. Is there, when you're building a program now in 2023, in some ways, I think you look at it most simply and think it's probably easier because of the transfer era, but there's also just additional challenges with that transfer. I mean, you have to build a team. I'm not saying that he has incorrectly built a team or gotten the wrong personnel. I think it's too early to make that assessment on this season, but there is just extra challenges there in trying to bring a bunch of pieces together with new schemes and getting that to work in year one. It's not a simple science by any means.
Yeah, I don't think anything's easier nowadays than it was back then because, yes, you can go recruit a bunch of experienced players right away who'll play for you tomorrow, but you still have to evaluate those kids. You still have to gauge fit. You have to make sure they're good enough, and you have to do that in like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And in a lot of cases, you have to do that on guys who have no film at the schools they played at before. So there are enormous challenges. You have to make them all coalesce together in a very short period of time. I think Purdue did a good job in the portal. I think Hudson Card is going to be a really good player. I think he's a really good player right now who just needs help.
Yeah.
I think those two corners are legit. I think Purdue needed help at wide receiver. We'll never know because the kid they got hurt himself or got hurt. The other kid they got kind of bolted on him at the last second for UCF. So that's kind of a situation where you can't really assess how they did because you'll never know. But that's a spot where they needed help. Other than that, if you sign double-digit transfers and four of them are difference makers, I think that's a pretty good percentage. And I think right now you're looking at Hudson Card, those two cornerbacks, at least being guys who have been pretty good for Purdue and will continue to be pretty good all season. So I think Purdue did okay. how it shows up in their record at the end of the season, I have no idea, but this is kind of the new coach experience, and it's I'm sure it's not for the faint of heart.
This is a big one on Saturday against Illinois, as you mentioned, sort of a program in a similar spot. I mean, I had a good year last year, obviously, with Brett Bielema, but having probably taken a step back a bit this season.
What changed with Illinois from last year to this year?
Well, they lost their defensive coordinator, who became Purdue's head coach.
Correct.
Correct. And a bunch of coaches went with him as well. I mean, it does. I mean, there's tons of storylines here, but ultimately, with all those storylines, it's a game Purdue needs to win.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm not a big must-win guy, because there are very few games that really define you. Or have the stakes that I think people on the outside like us sometimes want to assign to things. Yeah. I think this is a big picture endeavor for Purdue more than it's a short-term endeavor. My whole stance on the matter is let's see how they are halfway through next season. You know, I know that's not what people want to hear, but let's see how this season goes. Let's see how they start next year, and then you'll probably have a pretty good idea where this thing's going. But,
right.
You know, Purdue's been good enough to beat a damn good team in Fresno State. Purdue was good enough to win a road game against a high major opponent, even if Virginia Tech is not very good. And you were playing in a hurricane. Purdue, you know, kind of beat itself against Syracuse more than Syracuse beat it. If you ask me, that being said, Purdue still couldn't defend the read option to save its life. Purdue got handled by Wisconsin the same way they have for the last, you know, for as long as our kids have been on this planet. So I think, yeah, I mean, you obviously want to beat Illinois, you want to beat Indiana, you want to beat Northwestern. That's kind of a good starting point. Taking care of the business. Taking care of business against the people you should take care of business against. But I don't think that there's any game where if you lose the game, you auction off Ross-Ade Stadium to the highest bidder.
Yeah.
But that's just me. I tend to try to keep a level head about things, and maybe that puts me in the minority sometimes, but that's kind of my assessment of the situation.
Thanks, Brian.
Yep.
So that's Brian Newbert with his perspective on the Boilermakers. Let's take a break. Back with more in a moment. This is Gold and Black Radio.
Designing and building since 1968, T&W has changed the way people think about construction. T&W's three-stage approach to designing and building is unmatched throughout the construction industry. Learn more about T&W's people, passion, and projects at twdesignbuild.com.
Experience unparalleled comfort, service, and cuisine at the Whitaker Inn. This Midwestern oasis is perfect for a relaxing staycation or weekend getaway.
Escape from the ordinary at the Whitaker Inn.
What else is going on around the league? Let's take a look. It's the Big Ten Roundup.
Let's bring in Alan Karpik to talk some Big Ten football. Alan, this is the greatest slate of Big Ten football games I think I have ever seen.
It is it's stunning. There is not there's not a game outside of Purdue, Illinois that really is interesting, because I mean it looks like it's going to be any level of doubt between conference teams, I should say.
Yeah.
There are, obviously we'll talk maybe a little bit about Minnesota and Louisiana. That's still an 11-point spread with Minnesota, and the fact that the Gophers lost last week. But yeah, just crazy. It's just not we go from the frying pan into the fire, or whatever term you want to use, because last week there were some pretty good games.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. Purdue and Illinois, which is the only game that's streaming only,
yes,
is basically a pick-em. Every other game is at least one team is a double-digit favorite, except for Wagner and Rutgers, but that's because I assume Wagner is a lower division team.
FCS,
yeah. So good times. All right, let's. That said, let's break some of them down. Noon kick in Evanston. how wild was it last week after watching that Ohio State Notre Dame thriller that you could turn it to two other Big Ten games that were very close, one of them being Northwestern and Minnesota, the other one, of course, Indiana and Akron. But Northwestern stuns Minnesota. I mean, and probably one of the – I mean, I don't know if it was in terms of the line, but in terms of everything else, felt like one of the more stunning wins by a Big Ten team perhaps we've seen, at least seen here recently. But, man, Northwestern got a win, and now it's 2-2 on the season. I don't know that it can do that as a 26.5-point home underdog to Penn State, but you do have to give Northwestern a little bit of credit for picking up a victory.
You absolutely do, and the Wildcats have got got something going for them. I mean, the fact that they win and the fact that they come from 21 points down, where not exactly the entire world was watching that game when you think about Ohio State and Notre Dame, and though Penn State and Iowa ended up not being much of a game, it was a game that people were there weren't a lot of eyeballs, let's just say that on that one. But yes, Northwestern, it would take a monumental. Penn State has not done many things wrong this year. They were extremely impressive in a 31-0 win over Iowa, mainly defensively. They're the top defense in the country, but holding, I think, Iowa to 4 first downs and about 80 yards in total offense. I think it will take a second-week miracle times 2 for Northwestern to somehow get out of there alive. David Braun's done a good job of holding them together. Ben Bryant is a good quarterback, but again, I just don't see them hanging there for 4 quarters.
Noon kick on Saturday. The Ragin' Cajuns traveling to the Golden Gophers. Minnesota favored by 11. But the Gophers have to be one of the more disappointing teams, I think, at least so far in the Big Ten. I mean, having lost a couple of games in a row here, or at least 2 games on the season. And then, man, not only losing at Northwestern last week, but as you mentioned, having a 21-point lead and just falling apart at the end. It was pretty wild to watch.
It was, and Minnesota's got a very good running back, freshman and Darius Taylor, but a guy that is, racking up the yards. He may be north of 1,500 yards before this year is up if he stays healthy. But other than that, they're not very good. They had not good enough offensively to blow the doors completely off of Northwestern, and they let them stay in the game. And I agree with you, PJ Flex team. You start to look at Purdue's schedule and you say, all of a sudden you like your last 3 games if you're Purdue when you have Minnesota, Northwestern, and Indiana in the last 3 games. We know things can change, but I expect Minnesota to get through that game. But they're perplexing in how well the Gophers have or have not advanced here in 2023.
3:30 kick, number 2, Michigan playing in Lincoln at Nebraska. The Wolverines are undefeated 4-0. Nebraska is 2-2. The Wolverines favored by 2 touchdowns plus the field goal in this one. Man, you'd like this to be a Cornhuskers team that was ready for this fight, but you just don't feel like it is.
Well, just think about it, and I know we're kind of dating ourselves. We keep doing this with Nebraska. I mean, but can you imagine a Michigan-Nebraska game with no buzz? Somebody was talking about that this week. I mean, it's just stunning. Michigan has been good. Have they been really good? Maybe not yet. I think that Nebraska is going to have to again play a near perfect game, but they've only allowed, Michigan's defense only allowed 23 points and 10 of them in the 4th quarter. I know they haven't played anybody yet. I know Jim Harbaugh is now finally back. They played Rutgers, and Rutgers, I think he said last week, was the 2nd best team in the West, and I'm still not arguing with them on that. But my point is that I think Michigan will roll in this game. We'll have to give Nebraska another couple of years to get themselves to where they think they are, if they can ever get to that part or get as far as they want. Jeff Sims is just, they can't seem to not be turnover prone at quarterback, and I just don't think they have enough to even give Michigan much to worry about.
3:30 kick at Maryland as the Indiana Hoosiers travel east. The Terps are 4-0, 1-0 in the Big Ten. Indiana is 2-2, 0-1 in conference play. They got a victory against Akron last week in another one of those late games on Saturday that was close. The Zips had that game won a couple of times, it felt like, before IU pulled it out in the end. I'm not sure I've seen a coach be criticized. I think I probably have, but Tom Allen got a lot of criticism after that victory about his offense. And, man, this feels like a game where IU could be walking into something bad here, because if Maryland scores, I'm not sure the Hoosiers can keep up on the scoreboard.
Right. I mean, I think Indiana is limited, obviously, in its playmakers, and has not been able to show that they can consistently do that. I mean, Akron hits that field goal, and they're really embarrassed. I just think Maryland, I hate to go back to your West. You put the Maryland in the West Division, and they are the best team in that division right now. Maybe Wisconsin will have something, or maybe Iowa will have something to say about that down the road. But Maryland is good enough. They've got a really great, quarterback. They've got a really good running back in Hemby. They've got enough to really, I think, blow the doors off of Indiana.
We'll skip Wagner and Rutgers. I don't want you to break down Wagner. What is Wagner? Are they the Falcons? They're the Eagles? What is that thing? That's the Birds?
I don't know. We better look that up. But it is
they're the Seahawks.
They are the Seahawks. Yeah. They've had some basketball teams that have scared some people from time to time.
Let's not break that one down, though.
We're not doing that. Okay,
Michigan State and Iowa. This will be another thriller. Under the lights, they're in Iowa City. Ooh. Iowa is this is crazy. I love looking at the Iowa lines compared to the Iowa over/under, because the Hawkeyes are favored by 12.5. Yet the over/under is only 36.5. So, yeah, they just don't expect
24-12, right?
Yeah, 24-12?
Yeah.
Wow.
And I don't think so. I think that they'll win 19-3. I don't. Michigan State is is just in a horrible place as a program. I don't see that getting better. I think Iowa, obviously, even against Penn State, they lost 31-0, but defensively they're going to stay. They're going to stay in a lot of games. And Cade McNamara can't be as bad, though he certainly took a shot or two, it seemed, at his offensive coordinator this week about all. He just said, I just run the plays they tell me to run. But whatever they're running, they're not running well. And again, I always look at this, how this pertains to Purdue, but Purdue was too bad they're not playing Michigan State this year. But again, Iowa, I don't think is unbeatable, and and they were the odds-on favorite in the West Division. So who knows how this is all going to play out? But I don't think Iowa beats Michigan State easily.
That's a breakdown of the greatest slate of Big Ten games ever here in Week 5.
Let's go back in time with a historical look. Here's Alan Karthik.
All right, Al, let's take a historical view at Purdue and Illinois. First, let's jump in here with the Tiller Tunnel that will be dedicated during the game. Homecoming, of course, this weekend. Man, what a great tribute. I think it has just been an awesome addition to Ross-Ade Stadium. Well named for the former Purdue coach, and it's going to be really cool, I think, to see that dedication this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to do it in a ceremony before the game, but then obviously they'll get played on the big screen. But I like that. I don't know if it was a little bit of luck that they thought of that. Whoever came up and said, Tiller Tunnel, what a great idea. And, there was some gnashing of teeth by some that thought that, you got to build a statue for him. This is far better than a statue, because you're going to look at this every time Purdue comes out. It's going to be TV. It's not like there's like a little part. It's a big sign, as we've all known, as we've been in the facility 3 times this year. But it is great. It's too bad that Drew Brees isn't going to be able to be back, but there are going to be a lot of guys back. And I think the other thing, Kyle, is even guys going back to the Mullenkoff era are going to be part of that ceremony. that whole Purdue football family thing that Ryan Walters wants to build. He talked about that. The first thing he said in his press conference when he was hired back in December. I think it's all a good thing from that standpoint, and the Tiller Tunnel is just a fitting tribute to a guy that really did do a lot, did everything to turn Purdue football into a very competitive and championship level in 2000, and should have been in 2003. But this is a tribute to Joe Tiller and his family.
Yeah, certainly is, and brings back just a ton of good memories from that era. And those characters.
Well, and then the other thing too. Yeah, and the thing about it wasn't just that, Kyle, and you lived it, but they were good people. They were just fun to be around. I mean, Joe was that way. Jim Chaney, Brock Spack, Oleg, all those guys that they were just good people to be around. It was a different world in college football. We were lucky to be able to be part of that.
Yeah, it was a different time. Schedules were different. It was just a completely different era, and certainly one that's nice to be able to look back on at times. We'll be able to do that this weekend. Purdue and Illinois, the Boilermakers have dominated this series, having won 14 of the last 18. But there have been some good games within sort of that domination here recently by the Boilermakers.
There have been. Certainly last year was one of the best, just in fact of going out there with a lot on the line and really everybody ready to coronate Illinois to the Big Ten West Championship, though the Illini had lost the week before to Michigan State. Purdue takes care of business, even in some bad seasons. Darrell Hazel had a couple big wins against the Illini. He got his first Big Ten win in 2014, but even his last victory right the week before he got fired was a game-winning field goal at the buzzer, or was it in overtime? I can't really remember, but somehow I wanted to forget a lot of that stuff. But this certainly was. There have been some good games. There have been some very competitive games. Purdue has been on the positive side of it. And yes, that was an overtime win. Who was it? Dellinger to hit the field goal in overtime to beat Illinois 34-31.
So 50 years ago, a little bit before my time, Purdue lost a game over in Champaign, 15-13, a game that featured 5 Illinois field goals.
Almost unheard of. I think it was a Big Ten record, if I at least a modern day record at the time. And of course, long before television, I was a young impressionable person listening to the Purdue game on the radio and being, there's Purdue got a couple of bad calls. That always seems to happen, but they lost on 5 field goals by a guy by the name of Dan Beaver. 50 years ago this year. There won't be that many people who remember that, but it was a bitter loss for Alex Agassi in his first year. And I do remember that. And I do remember 2 years later, my first game I ever went to in Champaign, Purdue kind of was able to block a Dan Beaver field goal at the end to beat Illinois. But yes, there have been some competitive games. There have been some interesting games, and it is a quasi rivalry because they're so close. And you battle for the cannon, and there have been some really, really fun and interesting games that have been close. I expect we'll see that on Saturday in Ross-Ade Stadium as well.
That's a historical view of Purdue and Illinois with Alan Karpik. Thanks, Al.
Thanks, Kyle.
Back with more in a moment here on Gold and Black Radio.
On the far end of Main Street in downtown Lafayette, you'll find East End Grill, industrial and classic. The restaurant is built like a steakhouse, but handles like a bistro. East End Grill's menu includes creative starters, simple chopped salads, burgers, fresh fish, and steaks, and the signature shrimp and grits. The staff prepares every item from scratch and emphasizes simple meals that incorporate fresh, local, and seasonal ingredients. A warm and inviting dining room features a cozy bar that includes a great selection of craft beer, inspired cocktails, and a robust and expanding wine list. Whatever your entertainment needs are, a cocktail at the bar, dinner with family, or a special event in the private dining room, the energized and attentive staff is here for you. Eastern Grill in downtown Lafayette, welcome to our table. When it comes to land sales, it pays to have experts in your corner. Acre Pro Midwest Farm Group is your local farmland specialist. With decades of experience in Indiana agriculture, no one knows the market better. Whether you're doing a 1031 exchange or simply buying and selling farmland, your local Acre Pro agent will walk the land with you and ensure the deal is done right. Visit acrepro.com or call 765-775-6502 and talk to your local land expert today. Again, 765-775-6502.
At Purdue Federal Credit Union, it's about a relationship. A relationship that goes where you go, wherever you are in life. A relationship that's committed to free financial wellness resources, lower fees, and innovative digital banking solutions. Because we believe in people helping people. Let's build your financial future together. Purdue Federal Credit Union, your trusted financial partner for life. Federally insured by NCUA.
Broadcasting from Gold and Black World Headquarters, north of Purdue's campus, this is the Gold and Black Radio Pregame Show.
Let's break down some matchups between the Boilermakers and the Fighting Illini in this one, Tom. Look, you mentioned it earlier, turnovers. I mean, Illinois had its fair share in starting this season 2-2. Purdue obviously has had its fair share here, especially in the last couple of weeks. It just feels like the team that turns the ball over fewer times is going to have a real chance to win the game on Saturday.
Yeah, pretty simple. I mean, we know the importance of protecting the ball. What did Danny Hope always say, Kyle? The ball is the program,
the ball is
right?
the program. There you go.
But, yeah, you're right. That's going to be key. I think Purdue's -2 in turnover margin. You know, Illinois led the country in interceptions last year. They're not taking the ball away like they used to. Hudson Card has 5 fumbles this year. Devin Mockabee has 5 fumbles. So, yeah, again, it's been an issue, and it starts to get in your head after a while. So, yeah, take care of the ball. And I think, you know, again, football is a simple sport. I mean, they got to be able to run it. I mean, I broke down the run-pass balance for Purdue this year. It's 52% pass, 48% run. So they've been pretty balanced. And I think those running backs are a real strength of the team. I know the line struggled, but we saw them running for, 200 yards last week against Wisconsin. All that game got out of hand, but still, I think that they got to try to find a way to run the ball with Mockabee and Tracy. And boy, that just opens everything up. And keep Hudson Card involved a little bit too, running that ball. And that should open up the pass game as well.
Yeah, but Tom, they ran for 200 yards in a game that they trailed. I mean, that's a pretty good day. And maybe if you're looking for something a little bit, I'm interested to hear those numbers, 52%, 48%.
Yeah.
But maybe if you're looking for something that you really feel like you can hang your hat on offense, maybe that's it. Run the football with those 2 running backs, mix in Card, as you mentioned. If you can do that in a close game or with the lead, maybe that's a formula for success for Purdue.
I think Wisconsin was playing a lot of 3-line, drop 8.
Yeah.
They did not want to get beat over the hot top, Kyle, and teams are going to play that against Purdue. They're going to make Purdue try to nickel and dime its way down the field. And I think they're going to concede some runs, too. So maybe that was part of it. Illinois, Kyle's got 2 NFL defensive linemen in Jerzon Newton and Keith Randolph. So they're going to be a handful for Purdue's offensive line. But, yeah, like we said, I think Purdue still got to run that rock and take its shots downfield. Hopefully get some big chunk plays and score. Who knows, Kyle, maybe special teams can step up here and make a big contribution.
One big glaring thing for Purdue defensively last week, Tanner Mordecai, I thought, had all day in the backfield to scan the field, figure out what he wanted to do, whether that was find an open receiver or eventually just run with the football. Purdue has got to do something to create pressures in the backfield.
Going to have to blitz. I think we talked about this off air a few times. That line really can get pressure unless Purdue's blitzing. You know, you need more from Malik Langham and Cole Brevard and Jeffrey Emba and Joe Anderson and the whole likes up front, Isaiah Nichols. But if you got to blitz, bring those guys off the edge like Nick Scort and Pedro Jenkins. So, yeah, we'll see if Purdue can get some heat because you can't give any quarterback all day to throw. And conversely, Kyle, we can agree on this too. Hudson Card was running for his life.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, Illinois got some pretty good tackles. So, that line's got to get things buttoned up so Hudson Card can get a chance to set his feet, scan the field, and give him some time to throw it downfield.
All right, Tom, what do you got on Saturday? Who's winning?
I think Purdue finds a way. I submitted a 30-28 score, and maybe that covers. I don't know. Maybe the line is still 2, but 30-28. I think it's going to be a nail biter. Whoever wins, I think it's going to be a nail biter. And I got Purdue getting out of the homecoming affair with a close W.
Yeah, I've got the Boilermakers right there as well. I'll take Purdue 24-21. I think it's a close one, maybe a little bit low scoring. But it's hard for me to fathom the Boilermakers starting 0-4 at home. Like, you got to give Purdue an edge there at some point in one of these games, right? I mean, that just would be hard to believe, I think. And, while Purdue has lost some games, there have been moments where they have played well. Now, not enough of those moments, clearly. But you're also taking on an Illinois team that also has had only moments of playing well. And so I think that Purdue can pull out a narrow victory. Nothing would surprise me, however, on Saturday. But if Purdue is to keep any hope for getting this thing to 6 wins, as we've talked about a lot, it's got to be able to get this one on Saturday. All right. Thank you, Tom.
Take care, buddy.
That'll do it for our podcast for this week. Thanks to our sponsors. As always, if you do like the podcast, please rate us 5 stars on your favorite podcast app. Leave us a comment as well. All right, that'll do it for our show. For Tom Dienhart, Brian Newbert, and Alan Kerpick, I'm Kyle Charters. Thanks for listening. This is Gold Black Radio.